better than yesterday. I gotta be better than yesterday. No matter if I'm playing 6-man or star, I'm better than yesterday. I gotta be better than yesterday. I gotta be better than yesterday. No matter if I'm playing 6-man or star, I'm better than yesterday.
We gotta be better, do better. That's every minute, every second. Dropping juice, hope you collecting them. The voice of the people, we all gon' get heard. This real spill, never clean what I say. Always tuned in, never tuned out. Gotta stay woke and be a sleepwalker. Gotta stand up, got too many standouts. Stay ready like the 6-man of the year. We up now, we up now.
Be better than yesterday, I gotta be better than yesterday. No matter if I'm playing 6-man or star, I'm better than yesterday. Be better than yesterday, I gotta be better than yesterday. No matter if I'm playing 6-man or star, I'm better than yesterday.
Sharece Clothing is a new, stylish, black-owned brand established in 2016. They explore unfamiliar territories in the clothing industry by tailoring their Euro Street vibe into their entire product line to enrich their vision to their customers and all of their clients. In a world where you can be anything, Sharece says, be you, be versatile. Sharece Clothing can also be found at www.shopsharececlothing.com, and Sharece Clothing is also an official partner of this show, Real Talk with the 6-Man. Sharece, be you, be versatile. What's going on, everybody? What is going on? Welcome back to the show, man. Welcome back, man. It's gonna be a good night, man, because we gonna talk. We're gonna talk and get a few things clear. I'm excited because I met this young lady. Like I just told her, just in a social aspect, and then I start following her on social media, and I was just like, wow, she seemed like she might be impactful and right up my alley at some things that I want to talk about in the district, because I'm a Ward 8 resident, as a lot of you already know. And Ward 8 specifically is having a hard time in so many different areas. And so I just recently had a few episodes in regards to gun violence, in regards to violence overall with the young people, specifically men. And so now we want to just bring in just some things that we might not know on a day-to-day basis, but some things that I think we definitely need to know, because she wants to talk about some things that I think all of us need to, one, understand, and two, follow through with it once we get the information. So I have Miss Sharece Crawford. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
I mean, I thought it was impactful for me to do it, because I feel like as I followed you a little bit, I started developing this little, let me see what she did yesterday. Let me see what she did today. And I think everybody has their own little social media thing in terms of what they looking for and what type of content they want to listen to. So before we get started, can you tell the listeners kind of who you are, your background, what you've done thus far, and kind of what you're doing today?
Absolutely. My name is Sharece Crawford. I am a native Washingtonian. And I think it's also important to identify my lineage, because I am a descendant of enslaved persons here in America, actually the 4th generation free in this country. And I think that it's important to me to make that, to destigmatize the connection with our lineage in this country. And so I want to start sharing more of my stories, more of my ancestral stories, and really try, as I continue to self-identify and go on a journey of self-identity, and why I feel so passionately about gentrification. And, the more I became educated about understanding the debt that is owed in this country and throughout the diaspora for enslaved persons. And so I am a former elected ANC commissioner. I served 2 terms as an ANC, and then recently elected to the D.C. Democratic Party and representing the District of Columbia.
Okay.
I saw that it was a need for the Democratic Party to step up and speak up on behalf of the African American community, the Black community,
Absolutely.
especially those who were impacted and are the descendants of those who were enslaved here in this country. I believe we've done supported every specialized group in this country except the African American community and the Black
Right.
community, who is the most marginalized still to this day. And so I've done a lot of work on policy, both locally here in the district government, as well as nationally and federally, working on congressional legislation and policy in the U.S. Senate. And as you know, we talked a little bit about this earlier, where D.C. is not a state, and if we were a state, we would have a little bit more leverage
Right.
in the Senate and in the Congress.
Right.
But because we don't, I leverage a lot of my friendships around the country for those who do have congressional member votes and Senate votes, and that are willing to speak up and step up on causes that are important to all of us.
Right. And I think that's important because at the end of the day, I think when we first started, trying to get this transition, and I mean, when I say transition, I mean from a child to an adult.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff that we missed out on.
Yeah.
And we think about some of the stuff that we will discuss, but recently we talked about just entrepreneurship and generational wealth. And I feel like we had, some of our family members, depending on how far they go back, had that mindset. But
Yeah.
at some point it fell off and it missed a couple generations. And so now we're at the point now where we kind of are on track. We know a little bit more about it. We're investing in some stuff, depending on what your interest is. But it was one of them elements that I felt like in high school we missed. Everybody knew how to sell drugs. Everybody knew how to steal a car. Everybody could buy liquor before they was 21. So it was a lot of stuff that we learned how to do before we were even supposed to. So can you imagine if we had that type of information back then, what we'd be doing now?
Absolutely.
It'd be
hashtag education reform.
right.
I talk about that often. I'm working on that now. K through 12 education, not only is it not properly funded, the curriculum in itself is not suitable to sustain those that are coming out of public education.
Right.
Charter school laws are aiding and abetting charter schools from opening and shutting their doors. It's a revolving door. And so education reform looks like financial literacy in the classroom. It looks like understanding debt to income ratio. It looks like balancing a checkbook. It looks like understanding your credit score. It looks like working on having a reserve 6 months fund, understanding stocks and bonds.
Right.
And these are none of the things that I've ever been taught in a classroom.
Ever.
And so we're definitely, we're already 400 years behind on the 400-year anniversary from when our ancestors came
Right.
to this country unwillingly to build the country.
Right.
And still, even when slavery was abolished, we're still enslaved 100 years later until leaving plantations with nothing. And so if you were fortunate, you had family members who were sneaking away to get educated, to learn things, to be able to pass down information and oral history and written and oral history, as well as video logged history. But for many of us, like myself, there were no financial discussions passed down from my mother or from her mother's mother. It was really a situation of just figuring it out. And so today, I say this, and I do not take it lightly. And I know there are many like myself that are out there who have this same, I guess you can say, weight on their shoulders. But I am the first generation assigned to speak on behalf of my ancestors and to speak on behalf of my family and my lineage in regards to the things, the reconciliation that is needed, the restorative justice that is needed, the reparations that is needed, and that is owed for what has been left out for so many years. Even as an educated woman, as a self-taught woman, I'm still carrying that weight from 400 years later, 4 generations later.
Well, I mean, so I guess my question, because we can now get into it since you've already let the cat out the bag, what we're going to be discussing. So it seems like just till recently, reparations, that word had just started popping up.
No, I think it's always been there. I think it's been very taboo, like mental health.
Yes.
There's a stigma associated with the word that we need to end the stigma. We must end the stigma. Recently, a video went viral with myself and Bernie Sanders.
I saw that.
Where Senator Bernie Sanders, where I smiled and said, "Hey, we want to talk about reparations."
Yes.
We're not the we shall overcome generation. We are not the. It is not sufficient any longer to tell us that you marched with Dr. King. It is not sufficient any longer to tell us that you stood in the Birmingham buildings and you were at the riots. And it's not sufficient any longer to make those claims, because we all know there were people who were present, that were marching, that were with the movement, but were not with the movement. And so when Senator Sanders consistently responds to say he doesn't know what is meant by that, it is a disgrace to the very cause that he says he marched and stood for, because Dr. King said that we're coming to Washington to get our checks. And so everybody loved the nonviolent Dr. King and the stand down Dr. King. And
right.
But when Dr. King took a stand to say, here's what we're standing up for and here's what we're going to get, people want to X that part out of history.
Right.
But no, not any longer, not anymore. And granted, a lot of questions you get, well, you weren't that hard on Obama. I was a kid. So I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm speaking on behalf of my lineage.
Right.
And again, self-educated, graduated from HBCU, so I was formally educated there. But on most of the issues regarding what is owed to my ancestors, is a self-taught scenario.
Okay.
And so I will say, through the Obama terms, we had hope.
A little bit.
I had hope until the very end of the term, and then I was disappointed.
You and so many other people. There's a lot of people that feel that way. There's a lot of people that feel like he didn't do as much as they thought he could have.
But some people
say that he had shackles on, though. Some people would say
even with shackles on, the conversation should have been had.
That's true.
Even with shackles, we should not be just getting to a conversation where a Caucasian woman by the name of Senator Elizabeth Warren is leading the national conversation based on snafus that we've seen with other candidates.
Right.
That should not be the first time this conversation becomes mainstream.
Right.
You could have shackles on, but to not begin the conversation. And here's what's also important. Dr. Sandy Darity is a professor down at Duke University. I have been following his research, following his work, and what is clear is that the reparations program isn't solely for African Americans, but there's a stigma for the subject as it relates to African Americans.
Okay.
There have been several specialized groups paid out on reparations programs. Even here in Washington, I recently learned that the mayor cut a check for $100,000 to support immigrants to be neutralized here in the country, here in the District of Columbia.
100,000?
100,000 was the overall budget.
Okay.
And we're seeing the Office of Latino Affairs handing out checks.
Wow.
Simply because the immigrants are looking to come to the district and maintain citizenship and can stay here. Wow. So checks are being cut. I want to make that very clear when people say a check won't solve the problem or a check won't fix the problem. Perhaps no. There's no one thing that's going to solve a problem, but that doesn't mean that the debt is still not owed. If you were owed a check from your landlord or from for your business,
right,
or for services for a debt that is owed to you, you're not entertaining the conversation of that the landlord responding, you don't have to worry about it because a check isn't going to solve your problem.
Right.
Right. And that's exactly how people sound when they say a check won't solve the problem, because it's not about solving the problem. It's ultimately about solving the problem, but first and foremost, it's about restoration.
Yeah.
We all know the problems that we face are multi-layered, multifaceted, but that does not exempt what is owed. That does not exempt the debt that must be paid.
And I was listening to a story in regards to another entire race who was being paid to, pretty much enslave people so that way they could get a piece of their pie, so to speak, as well. So it was an interesting story. And when I listened to it, a friend of mine who's an older guy, he started asking me to look into the 13th Amendment. He started asking me to look into the Jim Crow laws. And because there's a lot of stuff that I wasn't really looking into. And I'm a street dude. Everybody know that about me. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's now time to be educated to the fullest as much as you can. We can keep, talking about what we don't know and blaming, shit on the white man, or the white man don't give me this, the white. No. We got Google. Library is free. Let's stop bullshitting and let's start really understanding what's going on out here. Because if we don't, we just walking around like what's that TV show with the zombies walking around?
Yeah, it's a lot of those.
Yeah, I don't watch that show, but that's what we kind of look like. Now that they've legalized marijuana in DC, there's a lot of zombies walking around that don't really know what's going on. The only good thing that they know is that they can smoke weed now legally outside.
Yeah, you're definitely one of the people like myself, born and raised in Southeast Washington, who was not supposed to. And here's what is interesting. J. Edgar Hoover, former FBI director, said that the single most threat to the American government is black unity.
Oh, yeah.
This was the director of the FBI.
Yes, ma'am.
And so he knew that when we became awakened, that those of us that were meant to be kind of pushed off into the wilderness to based on our zip codes, born there, that we were not supposed to be here in this moment having this conversation. We were not supposed to be an evolved and educated people. And so the more we share our stories, the more we spread messages of elevation, of self-elevation, of self-knowledge and awareness, the more we'll see people come out from being the walking dead.
I believe
and
that.
Start participating in their own rescues. So even for those that say we're not looking for the white man to help us do X, Y, and Z, they don't understand the Federal Reserve is how it's cutting everybody's check.
Yeah.
The same money and the same reserves we're spending and the same bonds we're using, no matter how you look at it, how you earn that dollar, it's the same dollar.
Right.
So if your claim is we don't need the white man to do it, then send your check back.
Yes.
Send your paycheck back.
And that's not going to happen.
No matter if you're a business owner, no matter if you're an employee. It's not going to happen. So it's not that so the white man is so the claim, the government, Uncle Sam, they're printing the checks. They're determining what the value of the dollar is.
Yes.
And the value of our dollar is slowly decreasing as we move into every day into inflation. Mm-hmm. So what's important about this is that, yes, we're coming to get the white man's dollar, the white man's check. Uncle Sam owes the debt.
Absolutely.
Uncle Sam is creating the dollar. He's determining the value. So what's owed to the descendants of slavery is what's due. It's just like every other person out there working to earn wages. And this is not to say to sit on your laurels, to not be financially educated, because that is also significant to say that you must understand what to do with the current dollar that you have.
Right.
And how to earn and earn a wage. But then we look at living wages are laws where some states are not earning living wages.
Right. Maryland just stepped up and stepped up their wage, and I think that's a good thing. But like you said, it just seems like it could be a whole lot more going on than just a little bit of
the laws are being made by Congress, by the executive, by every level of the executive branch.
Right.
So it's important that we be engaged in that process to understand how they negatively impact us. And, so a simple thing like a business owner that's a general contractor. When you find out that the kitchen cabinets that you need to put that kitchen together are no longer coming in from China because of the American Buy America Act, which is in itself significant, but also challenging to have affordable product for your business.
Right.
These are laws that are being passed. And so one day you look up where your overhead was X dollar, and then your overhead doubled because of a law that you weren't paying attention to.
Yeah, exactly.
So these are people who say, well, I don't get involved in those kinds of things. Well, guess what's very important to know? That they're getting involved in your life.
Right.
And they're actively involved in your life.
Every day.
Even down to the census.
Yes.
Tracking data and trying to exclude who's being tracked in the census impacts the community that you live in.
Yeah.
When you look at what's being done with returning citizens and having in Florida, they just passed a law that returning citizens have to pay a fine after they've already done their time in order to register and vote. Voter suppression.
Wow. Hold on. So they did their time. They get out, get their rights back. But in order to get their rights, they got to pay for them.
There is a law that they're being fined. And here's what's important, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
That would be a true statement. That would be a
So if voter suppression it become law in Congress, and this is all while we're talking about the Mueller report. The Mueller report is significant, but if we're not talking about what we're doing to create jobs in cybersecurity and making sure that our infrastructure is solid so that we cannot be infiltrated by external forces, then we're having the wrong conversations.
Right.
Impeachment is significant, but we got to redirect that conversation to what are the solutions.
Right. Because that's a whole nother conversation. And I mean, I don't really like giving that dude that much entertainment and that much energy. I really don't. Let's
look at some real tangible ways to look at restorative justice. When you're applying for federal jobs, you can apply as a veteran. Veteran have priority or precedence. You can apply as a Native American. Native American they're identified as a special class. They have precedence. So I believe that Native Americans, Black and descendants of enslaved persons, need to also be identified as a special class.
That would be
true. Have precedence.
That would be true.
Land grants. Land grants are necessary as a form of reparations. When you look at how historically Black colleges and universities were founded and started upon, there was land grants. And so I believe that any person that is of a descendant of enslavement, they should be able to apply for land grants and qualify them based on those reasons.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we're talking about tangible things. We're talking about everyday education. They should not have to pay for education or have to take out a student loan.
And I mean, and it's from the last time I heard, student loan debt was like the number one debt.
Student loan debt is going to be the next market crash.
Wow. Wow. You said the market crash.
Student loan debt.
That's serious.
Between the student loan debt and the current debt ceiling,
it's real.
We're definitely in a very tumultuous times. It is. There's a civil war happening in the education arena, in healthcare with big pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely.
There's a civil war happening around housing and gentrification. I'm working with a group now where one of the things that we're advocating is for economic justice.
Okay.
Restorative justice and economic justice and equity in economic justice. Gentrification is happening around the country.
Oh yeah.
Where it's now intentionally pushing out the have-nots. Even the middle class is becoming more and more extinct to having opportunities to live in nice spaces. in gentrified communities. And we're pushing back. And if you're welcome to follow us at Crawford at Large on Twitter. It's Crawford at Large. We'll be keeping a lot of updates there. And we have a lot of work to do.
A lot. I mean, because I think that I feel like sometimes that people pay attention to the things that are relevant, meaning, social media, the next new song, the next new reality show. And I feel like the same type of attention that we focus on, the so-called relevant stuff, we could be focusing our attention on stuff that we might not know. You know what I mean? And I mean, when I say might not know, I mean stuff that, you hear people talking about on TV, and it's just like, oh, well, what are they talking about? Why not go find out what they talking about? When you say, reform, like, where do you get that information from? You can get it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you got to go fill out a grant to get this type of education or get this type of information that we talking about now. So why is it that it just seems like it's not something in place, or people not feeling like they care?
I'll say this. My background is in I studied journalism, marketing, and mass media at Shaw University.
Okay.
And journalism and marketing and the media has done a very great job with controlling the narrative.
Oh, there we go.
And setting the agenda. And so the more images and visuals and sounds you hear about a particular subject tends to be the direction that we all go into. Mm-hmm. And so it's important, like I said, while X is happening over here on the right, what's not being discussed over here on the left.
Right.
And that's what I mean by us coming to an awakening to really be focused down on the issues. And I talked about this too. I had opportunity to join to attend the Broccoli City Fest. Okay. And Childish Gambino performed "This Is America."
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen that video.
I've seen it.
But there needs to be an award class for the level of excellence that is displayed.
Right.
Because what he depicted in this video was how quickly we can refocus to what's in front of us while we're not paying attention to what's in the background. Wow. And that is America.
Yeah.
And not just America, perhaps, because I saw another video that come out that says this is Nigeria. And look at other parts of the country where this guy just shot up the place over here, but seconds later, he had a dance going on, and watch him whip. And we got to the whip, and what murdered people?
What happened?
And we forgot all about what happened in the background, or what's happening in the background, or what just happened, because we're into the dance now. We're into the entertainment. So the entertainment now is also being used as a great tool to distract us from what is happening. That's the greatest impact behind the scenes. And so that is the best real life example that I could share to demonstrate the times that we're living in, because it is all happening at once. And that's why I say also mental health is significant.
It really is.
Because the number of images that we have been exposed to, that we are being exposed to, is significantly overwhelming for any one human being to process all at once.
So it was a story of a young lady that was in Memphis. She was arrested for uploading 2 videos for raping a 4-year-old boy. So when you say mental health, so it took me about 15 minutes to let it soak in. 1, what I was reading, and then 2, I listened to the video, and then 3, I thought of my 5-year-old instantly. And then it's like, now I'm looking at the victim and the person who committed this horrible act. They both need help now. And the person who who did this horrible act, that didn't just that she didn't get that from just out the blue. Somebody did that to her, and so now we talking about
generations.
Yes.
Have you heard of Tariq Nasheed?
I've heard that name.
Tariq Nasheed is working on a documentary called Buck Breaking.
Okay, I need to write that down.
For the first time this year, I heard the term buck breaking, and when I tell you that it changed my entire life.
Okay.
He created a hashtag called First Them.
Okay.
And in buck breaking, it basically talks about a slave master sexually exploiting their male slave.
Okay. Wow.
And then that's passed down from generation to generation.
Wow.
And so what we're experiencing today is a compound effect, which when people tell me that slavery is over, the institution of it, the formalized version of it, perhaps, maybe, but the impact, the modern day effect of it,
Right.
is still highly in effect. It's still well and alive.
I mean, the NFL.
They're all owned by, and that's another part of the problem.
Keep it 100.
Where we're looking at, black ownership in these industries.
Right.
Being significantly less than the white counterparts.
Right.
Land ownership. I mean, housing, home ownership among black people is as low today as it was when slavery was legal, when segregation was legal.
Wow. That says a lot. That sets a tone in my mind, because when I think about that, I think about the NFL off the break, and I think about all of the black entertainers or people just people who are influential that's black, how they don't get a shot at owning a team.
Yeah, and it would be a thing of every athlete having to put their money together to sign off as a joint owner.
Right.
And even that, even in that, they can be denied.
Right.
Because they have to there's a membership that has to be accepted.
Right.
Because they've created this society that shuts the door on many black and African American people.
And people will say that whole Colin Kaepernick situation, didn't go the way everybody thought they saw it going, because they saying that this was a $10 million payout. $10 million? That was it? So to me, I mean, I look at situations like that on a grand scale. Like, look how they treated him. Right? So if they treated him like that and he's famous, he's on TV, everybody knows his name, what the fuck you think they're going to be doing to you?
And that's also a generational thing. When you want to teach someone a lesson, you kind of hang out to dry.
Right.
The one that's willing to speak up and step up.
Right.
That's also generational. That's also a part of the fabric of this country.
And so when I was younger, right, I used to get told that I talk too much, meaning that if I had a job and I felt like I was being treated some type of way, I was told that I needed to be quiet or I lose my job. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm thinking if you have a job, you should be able to have the right to be treated a certain way, right?
I agree.
And if you're not being treated a certain way, you should be able to have the right to just say, hey, I don't think I'm being treated fairly, right? And so the older people in my family used to be like, well, you can't do that because that's how you're going to lose your job. You got to let them white people do what they do. What does that mean? Let them do what they do, what they did to y'all, what they been doing? I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be able to be treated right, and I want to speak on it if I can.
It's a learned, passed down behavior.
Yes.
And the best advice on that note I can give is to put it in writing.
Right.
Is to now let your writing skills speak for you. And that was a large part of the reasons why slaves were not educated, because those who were able to learn to read and write, many of them were now able to understand laws and write their own free papers.
Right. Right.
And so today, in the modern day slavery world, you can now write your own free papers. You can write, learning to read and write will change your life and can change your life and your business and your job, and ensure that you're not being treated with prejudice ensure that you're not being discriminated against. So there's so many tools and resources out here today that can be utilized in support systems for when you are being treated unfairly and unjustly.
I mean,
so it is important to speak up.
I've had to go to the EEOC a few times, and so I've been up there enough times to know, kind of when I'm not being treated a certain type of way. And so for me, I've never been that type of person where, me speaking up sometimes has gotten me fired, has gotten me, in some, bad situations, being able to provide for my family. But I never looked at it as me, just being a nitwit, just being somebody that just want to say something because I can. I'm looking at it like I'm speaking up for myself, but I'm speaking up for everybody who don't want to, speak up.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the only person that feel like this.
Right.
But like you just said, I'm the one that everybody sees. So, okay, let's make the example out of him, which is fine. I've been made example of a lot. But I feel like that's not a stigma that's going to stop me from speaking up, or let alone giving my people the type of information that I think they need.
It takes courage. It takes courage to have this conversation. It takes courage to speak up on your behalf. It takes courage to speak up on behalf of people that are depending on you.
Right.
So I applaud you and everybody else out there listening who have found the courage to step up and in your respective areas and speak up against the inequities in this country and in your spaces, because there are so many layers to what we confront and deal with every day.
Yes.
That it's easy to opt out.
I like that. I like that.
It's easy to unsubscribe.
Yes.
And I encourage you not to unsubscribe. I encourage you to stay plugged in, to stay finished, to stay focused, because we are not finished.
At all. Opt out. I like that. Because I'm not opting out. I felt like I did that when I was young. I felt like I gave up a lot of my rights. I felt like I gave up a lot of stuff that I could have done better, but I made some dumb decisions and even put other people in bad situations. And I feel like now I'm at a point. I remember one time I went to counseling, and the counselor asked me, did I consider myself a leader? And I was like, I don't think so. She was like, you sure? She was like, just tell me some stories about you and, growing up or whatever. And so I told her maybe 5 or 6 different stories on different occasions coming to see her. And she was like, you've told me, a few stories, and you don't realize that you have led in each story and everybody followed you.
Yeah.
I was like, huh? So I've led people into some terrible situations. Mm-hmm. But now I feel like, knowing that, I want to be able to steer that in a different path, now that we older. Because I feel like I can't be the 25-year-old back on the block no more, because I ain't 25. Mm-hmm. What I'm supposed to do, be 25 at 41. I can't. It don't even. It don't add up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The youngest out there see me back out there. They like, what you doing out here? You an old head now. What you doing out here?
And so hopefully they can now see you out there in a different perspective. See you doing some things with your time and resources to educate and advance the culture, which is necessary. Seeing black men being able to create platforms,
right?
And hopefully they will follow you in that suit.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, because I'm kind of doing this, I'm following too. Because I went to the Day of Empathy with Tony Lewis, and it was to me, it was impactful for me because, one, I've had to do that count. You know what I mean? I've been involved with that for a while, and some of the guys that I talked to, I might not have done as much time as they have, but I know what that count feels like, on numerous occasions. And so, bumping into a few people there. I saw Raheem Jenkins. He interviewed me back in 1996, the 1-year anniversary of the Million Man March. I was incarcerated, but he happened to catch somebody that was at Ballou that knew me, told him my story. He interviewed me. I can't remember what the I know Bruce Johnson did the interview, but I can't remember how to get the actual footage because I would like to see it myself.
Definitely.
But it was an interview that Raheem Jenkins did with me, and I just think from that point on, something sparked something inside of me. And this was, I was in high school, just getting out in high school. I mean, I still cut up a little bit, but I think as I started to grow, the nonsense and the foolishness kind of cut out, as I grew up, so to speak, as I started to grow up. So I had a daughter. She's 23. My oldest is 23. My youngest is 5. And so I think my oldest daughter kind of started it off, like
Getting you in the
slowly
right
getting me
direction.
exactly. And now my little daughter got me like
Focused.
running, like because I know if it's about them now. It's not about me. I mean, as I get older, I look at my mom and my older people, my family, and they setting up, for the next thing. And I think we need to be doing the same. Wills, trust deeds, all that stuff. I mean, we not doing it though. You know what I mean?
It starts with us. It's going to
Right.
start. It's going to be one person, and I just encourage everybody listening that say that you can be the one person in your family that's going to change the financial trajectory. It's going to change the
Right.
economic trajectory. It's going to change the mental state of your family.
Right,
It only takes one person with your last name,
right.
and sometimes, very likely, that person becomes us.
Yeah, that's true. That is
Sometimes we
true.
become that person.
And I had a friend of mine who spoke about, the generational wealth part, going back to that, he had a family member who had all this land and people just dropped the ball and now they don't even own the land anymore.
Understanding the
So
value.
You know what I mean? Just
A
selling
lot of
out.
another thing was just challenging is that we have not yet learned the value of having ownership and equity.
Right,
And I think now many of us are within this as the generations progress.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times where, unfortunately, wealth skips a generation
that's true. That is true.
because it was not
skipped me.
preserved and maintained.
Skip me.
Or you didn't see the value in keeping that house that was lost by your loved one.
Right,
You thought it was better to sell it and split the money up because you needed the cash,
Right.
or whatever the case, what may or may not have been.
Mm-hmm.
But that comes a lot with education
right. Knowing.
that you should be taught. I believe in K through 12.
Right. So, but how does that work? I mean, how do we? Because I hear stories about
In that math class, in that what is the class? Algebra class, in that Algebra 2 class.
Good gracious.
I mean, I think these are classes where we need to be learning about money,
Yeah.
finances.
Because I was looking at a story talking about charter schools and how they are ran, saying that they have a little bit of the public school feel, but have a little bit more direction, a little bit more foundation, so to speak. But then I was like, well, why are they all closing? And now shipping people to neighborhood high schools, and now increasing the number of people or kids that's in the school. I mean,
Because charter school laws are aiding and abetting this closure. You can get one technicality, and your doors are shut.
right. Because I was reading an article about what they doing at Ballou, and just cutting funding from education. I'm like, how's that possible?
Yeah, that's happening at a lot of other schools in Ward 8. They start to reprioritize the funding, and they put black minority schools and predominantly poor communities at a lower class.
And so, what's the take? I mean, what's the take on taking away from education, though? I don't get that.
So it depends on where the money's going. The take on it, there's no logical definition for it. There's always a justification that people provide when they are removing funding from marginalized schools. But the bottom line, it boils down to lack of concern.
Right. And would you say a lack of concern also a resource, because you like you said, you need the money, so it's a lack of funding as well?
I think it's not a value in human capital.
Okay.
When you take away from education, you are taking away from the future,
Right.
generations to come.
Right.
And that is what I will not and cannot watch and be silent about it.
Right. I don't think I can. I don't think I can either. Because I mean, at this point, I mean, we need as much education as possible to move forward, to do anything. I mean, whether it's. I mean, I had an argument. Well, not an argument, but I had a episode on skilled trade versus college.
Yeah.
And we looked at the difference between having getting out at a standard business administration degree, making $58,000 maybe, versus a tradesman who did his year or two journeyship, and now the apprenticeship is over with. Now he's making $25-$30 an hour compared to the college graduate, but now he has outstanding debt. So now they're going to garnish the wages out of the check that they get. So it's just is it a must that we go to college? I mean, some of us go, and it ain't for everybody. But then you got that trade, that's that can still provide as well. So it's just like we got to find that balance. And middle schools, ask these kids what they want to do, and go from there. Because I feel like the generational gap, we can close it if we start now. Really getting it back in school. And I just feel like if we can get it going back in school at a younger age, and like you said, start early K through 12. I mean, I think stuff can be a lot better. I really do.
I agree that we need to institute a process not only for tradesmen, but for what is the path for those receiving college educations to ensure that they can come out debt free, with a career, and how do we help select careers that pay well? Right. Education is another field that doesn't pay well.
Exactly.
Educators are significantly underfunded. Right. And they're the ones typically funding the classroom. Right. There was a photo of an ordinary classroom with blank walls, and then there was a photo right next to it of a classroom with art, colors, paintings, all purchased and bought by the teacher who was not being paid enough. Wow. So again, we have a lot of work to do in these areas.
Final thought. Give me a final thought on how you think we'll look in the next 5 years, since we got this 2020 election coming up.
The next 5 years, depending on who is getting involved and getting activated. If you are getting involved and getting activated, it is going to be responsive to the demands that we set forward. Okay. And until we start showing up, making our demands, and unwavering demands, not demands where we're falling off after This Is America happens and the next dance comes on, we can set the agenda in the next 5 years. We just have to show up to set it.
So now I'm gonna throw a wrinkle in it real quick. So out of the I think it's like 20 now. Is it 20 candidates or 21? Did Joe make it 21?
They said it was 24.
Okay. So it was one candidate that was openly gay. And then it's a slew of female candidates, white and black, and then a slew of male candidates, white and black. So I posed the question: would it be an issue if we had an openly gay white president or openly gay female president? Because the thing is now that somebody said that, we're not gonna vote for a female, so it's gonna end up being a white male again.
So you're dealing with humanity. There are going to be there's going to be someone somewhere who finds anything to take issue with.
Right. Right.
There's no pleasing everyone.
Right.
Regardless of sexual orientation, we have to look at strong policies. We have to look at who's willing to step up to the plate to really demonstrate leadership capabilities through policy and understanding how to navigate the layers of governance.
Right.
And so that is what I would always redirect the conversation to who is really dealing with policy. And right now I see that person as being Elizabeth Warren.
Interesting.
I like Kamala Harris. She's also someone that's on my radar.
Okay.
Joe Biden is showing as a front runner based on name recognition. His past voting record is a part of the problem. Reasons why we're in the problems that we're facing today. So he has a lot of explaining to do directly to show, not even explain. See, other candidates can kind of project and explain, but he's someone who's made policies that's impacted us negatively. He made the policies that Senator Kamala executed as a prosecutor.
Okay.
He made those laws, advocated for them. And so he has to show the same energy that he advocated from the Senate floor on putting predators away and putting black people in jail.
Right.
He has to show that same exact energy on what does the restorative process look like for those returning.
Right.
What does restorative justice look like for those who were wrongfully accused and returning back into society and to their families?
Right.
So oftentimes I say, I'll leave you with this, sometimes it's the snake that bit you is the one that can cure you.
That's interesting. I think I heard that when you said it the first time.
So that's possibly a scenario that we're in, that we are looking at that we have to go back to the source, and he has to face the decisions that he's made and the policies he advocated for and helped sponsor.
Yeah.
To get us in the situation that we're in today. And on another note, I'll leave you with this. I've seen some video comparisons that say that, okay, this is a video that Biden pushed and Bernie was against. But the problem with Bernie is that he went and still voted for those policies. So I'd rather know at face value who I'm dealing with than the person that's openly advocating against it.
Right.
And then quietly does the absolute opposite of what they're advocating for.
Right. I agree with that.
And thank you so much for having me today.
I agree with that because a lot of times people say, people say and do stuff, but then turn right around and apologize.
Not even apologize. Do the opposite. He voted for the crime bills.
Right.
He voted for maximum minimum wages. Minimum charges.
Right.
Bernie Sanders voted in favor of these things, and he'll respond and say, there was a lot of other things in the bill. But the long story short is, Bernie, you voted for it.
Right.
Now, he wasn't the person in the front advocating for it, but he also didn't make any announcements when he voted in favor for the projects, for the policies.
Right. And so with that being said, listen, it's a lot of stuff that's going on in front of us. And it's a lot of smoke screens. These smoke screens are designed to get us off balance and to get us thinking differently and not really paying attention to who we should be voting for and what we should be doing out here. So, this type of platform for me now is wide open. I want to try to bring as many different dynamics to the episodes as possible because I don't want to just stay stuck on one, grammar or one, topic or one issue. I want to kind of feel it, see what's going on and bring it to the table. So it's been a pleasure, Ms. Crawford. I'm glad you made time. I'm definitely going to try to set something up again where to be a few more people in the building so that way we can really get into a bigger dialogue because I had another guest coming, but he couldn't make it. His Uber was leaving from Largo, and I was like, Largo to here after 7? Nah, we might well try to reschedule, champ. So we're going to try to reschedule it again, and I'm going to see if we can get not a form, but it'll be maybe 2 more people here.
Let's do it. And
try to, talk about some stuff again. So I appreciate y'all coming through. I appreciate y'all listening. As always, man, be better than you were yesterday. And it's the 6THMAN, and I'm out. Y'all be easy.
Peace and love.
Japer's Clothing is a new, stylish, black-owned brand established in 2016. They explore unfamiliar territories in the clothing industry by tailoring their Euro Street vibe into their entire product line to enrich their vision to their customers and all of their clients. In a world where you can be anything, Sharece says, be you, be versatile. Sharece clothing can also be found at www.shopsharececlothing.com. And Sharece Clothing is also an official partner of this show, Real Talk with the 6THMAN. Sharece, be you, be versatile.